So we got a little bit of a piss poor build here, recently built, and we're pretty much going to go through and clean up some of the mistakes that the builder did. Some sticky drawer slides, bad latches, bumpable switches, switches in bad locations, you know, some little electrical fixes and stuff like that. It's a fun list to take care of over the next 2 weeks. So we've been making some headway on this funny build here. Got to clean off some schmutz here, but there was a bunch of switches here, like a water pump and heater switches and such, put in the back for some reason by the builders. What we did is we actually moved them forward. Let me show you that. Watch your step. So down here is a bit of his water system. We made this little board here and brought all his switches into a more usable area, you know, nice and labeled, and I think they look pretty good too. Another thing we did, funny little issue, he kept bumping his switches with his hip. They were rocker switches, so we put in these really nice switches here, and that's for his, you know, cabin lights and outside lights, and I'm a real fan of that. That looks nice. Been doing a little bit of work with the hot water system, a little bit of power system stuff, but really just small, fun little fixes. Trying to take credit for my work on camera? Is that what you're here to do?
Going through this job and addressing a bunch of little items that amounts to a lot of frustration for the owners. One of them has to do with the construction of these cabinets, and 80/20 is a popular medium to build out of, and it's useful for some applications. It's used extensively in these van builds, which I don't think is a very good thing. And that's because there's 80,000 machine screws that are used in here. And it's really heavy and clunky way of building cabinetry. I think it's good in an industrial application where you're building machinery and things that are stationary, but these vans are never stationary. They're going down the road and shaking. And one of the things I've been doing with this van for the past 4 hours is tightening up every single nut and bolt that I can find in here. So you'll see them when we come in, but there's screws underneath here holding this wood panel on, and half of them have wiggled loose. Loctite wasn't used on them, and that's extensive throughout this van. Like all these panels up here, when you're driving down the road, this wiggling and banging turns into this super loud boomy sound when you're driving. So 80/20 may be good for garage areas if everything's tightened up and Loctited, but a welded joint is going to be way lighter using square tubing, and it's not going to wiggle loose over time. So that's my piss poor rant on 80/20 construction. I don't know if Hayden has any inputs on that.
As someone who has to work on this van, the stuff's just a nightmare to work with. You know, for prototyping, or if you're going to make something over and over, I could see the use of it, but for someone who has to go in and, you know, adjust things, it's really not fun. I'd rather rebuild something out of wood than have to adjust something out of 80/20.
It's okay in some applications. I think in the van world it's used a little too, what's the word I'm looking for? It's used a little too, I want to say, like when you take, not advantage, but kind of advantage, you overuse. It'll come to me. So here's a perfect example of 80/20. 4 machine screws for this joint, 4 machine screws for this joint, another set for this joint. It's a million things when, if you're a fabricator, you get 1 bar, you weld here, you weld here, weld here, weld here, you're done. It's super strong. It's way lighter. Like this stuff is actually fairly thick, and there's a lot of material going on here. So it turns into a lot of weight quickly, which transitions into this. These are the tires that are on this van. They're oversized tires. There's a major issue where these are S-rated tires, and this van is fully built out and pretty much close to max GVW. And these should be E-rated tires. They should be 10 ply sidewall. You can actually see there's a lot of squish in here. I don't know what the pressure's at, but what's happening while this is going down the road, these tires are flexing too much. And that flexing is creating heat, creates resistance, you get worse fuel mileage, and the tires are gonna fail. They're gonna blow up. And let's look at the wear patterns up here. This has like a shark bite stuff going on. Originally we thought this van had bad alignment when I looked at it. I was like, oh, you gotta go get this aligned. But you can see this chopping that's going on these tires. Also, there's 9,000 miles on this van. This tire's probably halfway through its life. So in 9,000 miles, like 14,000 miles, these tires are gonna be smoked. And that's because they're flexing so much. There's all that resistance and heat buildup, wearing them out. Like, see how low this lug is right here compared to this lug? It's chopped up really bad. Same thing back here, look at this one. This is where it gets really obvious. Look at how worn out this is right here. And these tires at 9,000 miles haven't been rotated, and you just feel like this crazy chopping. These would be great on a Tacoma, not so good on a Sprinter van. So keep that in mind when you're buying tires. All right, Hayden's gonna take over.
Testing. How's it going? Just in here to show off a little bit of my work. Had a lot of fun little carpentry projects, electrical projects. This thing kind of has it all. The big time soak was this door. I'm sure you have footage of the original disaster. This is kind of what I came up with. This bamboo is unobtainium right now, so we kind of worked with what we had, and I did this, laminated some lightweight ply with this.
Upcycle the old door.
Yeah.
That's your proper term.
Yeah, upcycled, that's right.
For on-trend terminology.
Yeah, so we upcycled the old door to get some of that bamboo trim and kind of tied it in with this nice black laminate we had. When I first saw this, I knew it needed to be, you know, this accordion bifolding style for it to really work. Got this little latch there, nice tug, and then it magnetizes back on itself so you can easily, you know, walk by.
Yeah, with the old door, you couldn't walk by it.
Yeah. If it was open, you weren't going anywhere. So that was kind of my main thing. I wanted it to be able to get out of the way like this, and you can just pop it like that. We got magnet catches along the bottom. I got a magnet catch in the corner here. So it just kind of sucks itself into place and doesn't really make any racket, which is a big one in this van. Nice little switch panel upgrade. So they had this ugly, you know, plastic thing
It's not
before.
necessarily ugly, it's a utilitarian
Sure.
ATV or a Razor or
Yeah,
a Jeep. But
exactly.
it sat right here and you'd bump against it all the time, and it would turn on
Right.
and off lights when you didn't want them. This is a little lower profile. You got the angel eye on it to remind you if your outside lights are on.
Another thing was in this little hidden spice rack, they had done some smaller bins, and Guy kind of wanted more so some space for his liquor bottles. So I kind of, once again, upcycled some more bamboo that we had from his door and was able to come up with this little bin here. Now here, if you remember, was kind of a disaster switches wise, and we had some switches in the back garage that should have been up here more easily accessible. So with our rocker switches that we like, these vintage look. Also did some strengthening to the water filter because that had broken.
Yeah, I think that's
Oh, it's
so that's a perfect example of, like, we haven't finished tuning this cabinet.
yeah.
And go ahead and open it up. It's all like,
If I even can.
yeah, that's
Oh, there we go.
that's my next job. So those are done and quieted, but yeah, like that's all stuff you listen to when you're driving down the road. So like even that shaking there, these screws have come loose. Yeah, 80,020 screws need to be tightened every time you put 9,000 miles on your cabinetry that's built in this style. So here's the Agile off-road Fender kit, and we keep these in stock. and we put them on when we upsized to the 265 70 R17 Falcons. And it's just a real simple plastic piece. You got to remove some of that inner fender. Okay, so this piece sits right here and bolts in to here, and it moves this whole fender assembly back to clear the oversized tire. You can see here is the inner fender well, and this is designed to keep salt and road spray and all that nasty stuff off your van. And there's a little clearance hole right here so that it sheds down behind this fender, which is designed to keep rocks and stuff from dinging all of your undercarriage, which wears away the undercoating and exposes the metal to salt and rust. This is the right way to put bigger tires on your Sprinter. Now we can go look at the piss poor way. This is the piss poor way to do it. You can see it collects dirt. The builder cut out the plastic inner fender. You know, plastic's easy to cut, and it allows moisture and debris to collect in there and start to rot out the steel that's in there. Piss poor van life. We've done a couple of these where we just call out really shoddy work, and this is the Sprinter edition. So this is a full custom build that a client picked up. They put about 9,000 miles on it and brought it to us with issues that they needed resolved. So this is something that happens a lot with van builds and camper builds, and right from the factory. Corners that are cut in order to reach budgets and stuff. I think my point is that when we send a van out and it's gonna go 3,000 miles away, if there's an issue with it, it has to go to another shop. We strive our hardest to make sure that there's no embarrassing mistakes, and try to shake down the vehicles when they're local to us, work with the client on issues. So in the case of this one, the client was done working with the builder and he's like, just fix the stuff that's wrong with this. I'm pulling it out right now, and we heard the wheels rubbing as I was pulling out. So I think I'm done with this thing, right? I'm not gonna work on it anymore for the day. I'm gonna go do something up in the hills, I don't know. But instead, the attention was brought to this fender situation here, and the fender's been cut so that it doesn't rub. Now I gotta go get the stubby fender kit from Agile and put it in. We can look at why this is an issue, see how the light is. Oh yeah, we got perfect lighting. This is packing dirt. So this was literally cut out, the factory fender right here, to make clearance for these underrated tires that need to be replaced. I got Falcons here, and that's one of the last steps was to put those on, but I'm also putting on a fender kit. I'm gonna pull that out and find a lot more work. So moisture, dirt, salt, rust, and if you've seen these vans, rust is an issue, and that's introducing a lot of hurt down the road. They'll rot out that whole area. It's natural for a vehicle to loosen up over time. You take, your bike in for a tune-up following a purchase. You take your camper back to the camper dealer and they fix all your warranty stuff. They plan on fixing warranty stuff. It's rather than just make it good right away. So I think we're all done in here. We've been tightening up all the screws. One of the things with the 80/20 construction, it's wood and metal vibrate and it makes a ton of noise. So I've been going through this thing trying to quiet it up, and I finally get to this cabinet and you can see it actually pulling away from the wall. We did put our V slides. Hayden did a really good job going through in a lot of the cabinetry, and we added our V slides that have resistance so they don't just fly open. While that happened, we didn't tighten anything up in back. So I'll pull this out, crawl around in the dirt and behind this cabinet and actually fasten it down so it's not doing this. Going down the road. It's right behind your head. It'd be brutal on some washboard. If you're gonna build with 80/20, you gotta use Loctite. There was no Loctite used on anything, and every cabinet is loose. We're finally to that last spot here. I did take care of these. These are a lot tighter now. So that, it's literally loose driving down the road. It's not safe. What else am I pissed off about? Oh, the threshold. So wrapping up a job, I like to put a nice threshold on. It's like the last piece, and while we're building, sometimes we'll leave just tape over the edge to protect it so you don't chip it. This one came in here. They took the time to put a threshold here, but there's nothing right here where you're like walking in and out. You can see we've got raw subfloor right here. This is a spot where moisture is going to come in. If you're skiing or whatever, you walk in with your boots and step in this area, it's going to fall down from the door when you're opening it. It's like direct moisture intrusion spot, and it's loose. So here's your 80-20 vibrations that if you don't sound deaden stuff and torque down everything right, you're going to be listening to. So yeah, sad story on the threshold here. Probably like the last and final, like the gray water tank goes from a 3/4 inch gray water hose all the way down to a 1/4 inch barb. So like smaller than my pinky is how the gray water was being evacuated out of the tanks, and surprise, surprise, it's clogged. Underneath the van, like all the zip ties aren't trimmed. I like to trim my zip ties. I'm not that kind of guy that leaves danglers out there for other people to deal with. Yeah, there was also the air compressor, ARB wasn't working, and they used like one of those ADA line crimp-on electrical pieces. That's just no bueno in the automotive and marine and RV industry, those little line tap things. I opened up the hood, probably should have done this earlier, and I chipped the inside of my fingernail hitting the release right here. It's always nice when you're going to open something and to get hard, dried bed liner stuck underneath your nail. It's like, oh hey, we're not done being piss poor. We're just gonna continue kicking you while you're down. So on closer inspection, this super sweet grill was protected with rhino liner, and one thing you want to do whenever you look at that, paint plastic is to use an adhesive promoter, and nothing was used on here. It's like I don't even see scuff marks on here. Maybe there's something going that way, but if you were to scuff this and prep the surface for a top coat so it actually grips onto something and isn't smooth on the inside. Another thing for the owner to deal with in the future. This will continue to just chip. Like I'm not even trying to like wreck this guy's work, but it's just coming right off of there. Don't point the knife at the camera lens, bud. That's pretty piss poor. I hope the rest of it doesn't come off. Maybe they actually prep this spot good. Maybe, we'll see. So let's look inside the hood now. This is kind of funny. They wired these onto this post, and they could have gone into here for a nice clean run. This is the ARB fuse. Goes across the top of the radiator. That all looks good. And then I look in a little deeper, and here's a whole wire loom just kind of laying here for the lights. And it's not fastened down. You can actually hear me banging the relays around in here. I looked even closer, and the relays, this is where you mount them securely to something so that they can't bang into anything. And they're covered in like packing material. So I don't know how flammable this stuff is. I wouldn't recommend putting this stuff in an engine compartment. That's like the definition of piss poor. Yeah, the installer that did this portion of the build doesn't know what they're doing. They're hacks. Just tighten it up. I'm gonna fasten it down with zip ties just like they did, but I'm gonna clean the zip ties. I'm gonna get rid of this ridiculous packing protecting the relays and mount the relays correctly somewhere safe in here. No business being in a engine compartment. Yeah, that's like one of the most ridiculous things I've seen, and I've seen a lot of ridiculous things. Yeah, there you go.
Oh yeah.
That's about it for piss poor. Hopefully that helps out some people figuring out how to do things right, or what's my conclusion? I know, it's like, all right, I'm gonna go ride now. Like and subscribe. That's kind of weak on the ending.